SpaceX has begun building a launch pad for its Starship rockets in Florida, CEO Elon Musk announced, as the company looks to add another location to launch the mammoth rocket that is in development. Construction of the Starship orbital launch pad at the Cape has begun, Musk said in a tweet. Starship is a massive next-generation rocket SpaceX is developing to launch cargo and people on missions to the Moon and Mars. Hello and welcome to Elon Musk Daily. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, like this video, and hit the notification bell to get updated with technology trends. We bring you the video related to Starship updates, so stick till the end. The company SpaceX had previously started some work on a Starship-specific launch pad on the grounds at Launch Complex 39A at NASA's Kennedy Space Center, which SpaceX leases from the agency to launch its Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy rockets. But since builders have poured concrete on the foundation of the Starship pad in late 2019, the location has largely remained dormant. NASA, in a statement, confirmed that SpaceX is within the rights of their lease agreement to make launch infrastructure improvements within the boundaries of the pad. The agency also confirmed that NASA is not providing funding for the Starship launch pad and deferred to SpaceX on the project's scope, cost, and timeline. The space agency performed an environmental assessment of the plan in 2019 and gave SpaceX permission to begin work within the LC-39A site. But the agency said that approval is only to build at this time, with authorization for launches and landings requiring a separate approval process. Tom Engler, Director of Planning and Development at NASA's Kennedy Space Center, said that he thinks that the SpaceX plan is really exciting. Before the company leased the complex, it was previously used to launch Saturn V rockets for Apollo missions, as well as Space Shuttle missions. If you look at the history of the launch pad, this is probably right in line with how it was meant to be used, Engler said. To us, it's really just kind of a reaffirmation of the thought process of why that pad was built to begin with. When SpaceX began Starship development in earnest 2 years ago, the company started building rocket prototypes both nearby the NASA complex and at its private facility in Boca Chica, Texas. The company later pivoted to focus on the work at the Boca Chica site, which is nicknamed Starbase, and has since conducted Starship test flights and more from the Texas location. Previously, Musk said that SpaceX will hopefully launch the first Starship prototype to orbit in January or February from Texas, the company's next major step in developing the rocket. That test is pending regulatory approval, as SpaceX needs a launch license from the Federal Aviation Administration for the mission, with the federal agency expecting to complete a key environmental assessment. Musk's tweet marks the renewal of work on the Florida launch site for the Mammoth rocket, as he pushes SpaceX to perform as many as a dozen Starship test flights next year. His construction announcement also comes as SpaceX works to resolve a crisis with production of the Raptor engines that power Starship rockets, which Musk disclosed in an email to employees the day after Thanksgiving. Musk's email described a dire situation, warning of a genuine risk of bankruptcy for SpaceX if the company is not flying Starship rockets regularly by the end of 2022. In a brief update earlier this week, Musk tweeted that issues with the Raptor engines are getting fixed, but did not provide more details on the problem or solution. Elon Musk said SpaceX is hoping to launch the first orbital flight test of its Mammoth Starship rocket in January, a schedule that depends on testing and regulatory approval. We will do a bunch of tests in December and hopefully launch in January, Musk said, speaking at a meeting of the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine Space Studies Board. Starship is the massive next-generation rocket SpaceX is developing to launch cargo and people on missions to the Moon and Mars. The company is testing prototypes at the facility in southern Texas and has flown multiple short test flights. SpaceX wants Starship to be fully reusable, with both the rocket and the booster capable of landing after a launch to be recovered for future flights. SpaceX's Falcon 9 rockets are partially reusable. The company can regularly land and relaunch the boosters, but not the upper portion or stage of the rocket. The company's next major step in developing Starship is launching to orbit. First, the company needs a launch license from the Federal Aviation Administration for the mission, with the regulator expecting to complete a key environmental assessment by the end of this year. Musk noted that he wasn't sure if Starship would successfully reach orbit on the first try, but emphasized that he is confident that the rocket will get to space in 2022. "We intend to have a high flight rate next year," Musk said. SpaceX aims to launch as many as a dozen Starship test flights next year, he said, to complete the test flight program and move to launching real payloads in 2023. He stressed that creating a mass production line for Starships is crucial to the program's long-term goals, noting that the current biggest constraint on rocket manufacturing is how fast the company can build the Raptor engines needed for Starship. "I think in order for life to become multiplanetary, we'll need maybe 1,000 ships or something like that," Musk said. The overarching goal of SpaceX has been to advance space technology such that humanity can become a multiplanetary species and ultimately a spacefaring civilization. Although SpaceX has a $2.9 billion contract from NASA to develop Starship for delivering astronauts to the moon's surface, Musk said the company is not assuming any international collaboration or external funding for the rocket program. Starship is at least 90% internally funded thus far, Musk said. SpaceX has raised billions in funding over the past several years, both to fund Starship and its satellite internet project Starlink, with the company's valuation recently hitting $100 billion. Apart from revealing plans for Starship's first orbital launch, Musk also reflected on the fate of life on Earth and beyond. According to a report, he stated that at least 1,000 Starships are required to make life multiplanetary. The overarching goal of SpaceX has been to advance space technology such that humanity can become a multi-planet species and ultimately a spacefaring civilization, he quoted. Besides, SpaceX also wants to conduct a dozen Starship tests this year and is aiming to progress toward a launching commercial payloads by 2023. Starship was hoping for the said test flight by the end of this year, but the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration, or the FAA, recently announced that its environmental assessment of the launch will continue for the entirety of 2021. FAA's estimate that the assessment will end by December 2021, diminishing SpaceX's hope for a flight this year. The Programmatic Environmental Assessment, or PEA, started by the FAA earlier this year, evaluates the potential environmental impacts of the launch activities conducted at the Starbase facility located in Boca Chica of Cameron County, Texas. SpaceX aims to conduct multiple Starship programs over the next several years, and in order to execute the programs, it requires a permit or vehicle operator's license issued from the aviation agency. Meanwhile, the Starship isn't inactive, as SpaceX recently performed the first 6-engine static fire test of the Mammoth rocket as part of the launch preparations. The Starship S-20 is ready to reach heights where no other Starship rocket has ever reached, and as part of the preparations, SpaceX conducted the first 6-engine test fire and the second static test overall of the S-20. The 165-foot-tall Starship consists of two components: the Super Heavy booster powered by 29 Raptor engines, and the Starship mounted over it, which will be loaded with crew and cargo. Starship is being developed initially for missions to the moon, after SpaceX secured a multi-billion-dollar deal to use the craft to return astronauts to the lunar surface through the Artemis program. The Moonlander mission was initially set to take place in 2024. However, NASA and SpaceX were forced to put their collaboration of the project on hold earlier this year after Jeff Bezos' space firm Blue Origin sued the U.S. Space Agency for awarding the contract to its rival. That said, this is it for today's video. So, what is your take on this matter? Tell us in the comments. If you want to see our upcoming videos, ring the bell icon, and don't forget to like our video as well. That's all from my side. Thanks for watching.